introduce someone very special, and the next person is Dr. Debashish Khan, Department of Mechanical Engineering, IIT, Varanasi. And his topic is Third Hoyle mathematical theory of natural selection. Would like to give a short introduction regarding Dr. Debashish Khan. Dr. Devashesh Khan received his PhD degree in mechanical engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur in 2007. He is currently serving as an associate professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering at Indian Institute of Technology, Varanasi. His research interests include analytical and computational methods in engineering, science, continuum mechanics, and plasticity, fracture machines. So let's welcome Dr. Devashesh Khan. Would like to request you, please put your hands together and let's welcome sir right here onto the dais. Thank you.
Take it. So a very good evening to all of you. I think by this time all of you are exhausted and tired because I myself is exhausted. But at this time still I am seeing around 60 to 70% delegates are here, so it is very surprising to see. So in front of this the presentation which just now you saw that Professor Engg, this is mathematically very simple, but as at the end of the day you are exhausted, I will try to complete it very quickly. Okay. So topic is theory of evolution, mathematical and spiritual perspectives. So the most popular theories on evolution which have deeply penetrated into our academic system nowadays are the natural selection and the OA species change or the mutation of DNA. So the natural selection is also called survival of the fittest, where the heritable traits become common in a population, whereas the harmful traits become rarer in the population. And the OA species change, that is also known as random mutation of DNA, and in this mechanism genetic drift is there. And in any generation, even though this drift is very small, but in due course of time, these changes accumulate and it can culminate in emergence of a new species. So that means all known species are descended from a common ancestor through this process of gradual divergence. So the theory of evolution inspired many biologists and geneticists over the years, but the origin of life is the necessary precursor. And in that, it is the scientific, current scientific opinion is that the life came from simple chemical reactions, but it cannot explain how. And also, various models over the years have been developed in order to explain the origin of life. In that, I am just mentioning Operin's model, Fox model, Crane's model, Christian Dup's model, Miller's famous model, and the double helix model for the DNA and RNA concept. The evolution theory not only inspired the biologists or geneticists, but also it inspired many developments in mathematics to model the evolution theory and to understand its many complicated puzzling things in the course of the evolution. And this Fred Hoyle, along with Vikramasinghe, published a book, Evolution from Space, where they calculated that the chance of obtaining the required set of enzymes for even the simplest living cell was 1 in 1,40,000. So that is a very least chance. So this work will describe starting from a simple feedback mechanism, considering a single parent to offspring model, that is asexual model, that the modern biological theory of evolution of new species is not capable to maintain a stable population generation after generation. This will also point out that Darwinian natural selection theory is correct in a limited sense, not in large. And also this work or this presentation will mention some features of the evolution system from spiritual perspectives. So this asexual reproduction model, this I have considered because in order to keep the mathematics very simple. Okay. Though Fred Hoyle's mathematical model is also available for the bisexual model. So as this natural selection seems to follow simple feedback mechanism, so we can have a differential equation like this, dx by dt equal to sx, where this x is considered to be a fraction of population consisting of favorable property capital A, whereas the remaining fraction 1 minus x possessing a different property small a, and this s is one constant. And if we integrate this simple equation with the boundary conditions, x equal to x0 at t equal to 0, you will get x equal to x0 e to the power st, where if s is x will be unity, or it will have value 1 in a time span of minus log x0 by s, okay, when this a are the favorable properties. And if small s less than 0, the x value will be 0, and as per as the survival of the fittest or the natural selection is concerned, by this simple mechanism we can explain, and there is no problem. But problem starts after this, because it is claimed that in the DNA mutation there is a random mutation takes place. Though till at this time there are several opinions about this randomness, because we can simply understand that in any system, if there is randomness, then there is a little chance of betterment, but the evolution theory claims that due to this random mutation in the DNA, evolution takes place. So the essential problem for the Darwinian theory is how to cope up with the continuing flood of adverse mutations from the triad problem of only the single mutation given by equation 1. Okay. So here at this stage, this random mutation is not there. So simply up to this equation 2, we can very understand easily the natural selection, and that's why it has very much deeply penetrated into the minds of the people in general. But one more thing is that in this equation 1, it has not been normalized so that generation after generation stable population will be there. So that is one problem. And also that random mutation has not been considered. So if we consider that in order to have this stable population from generation to generation, one parameter alpha that I have described by this equation 3, maybe in this form, if we introduce this alpha, then we can have stable population generation after generation, even if we suppose accept this natural selection theory. Okay, so if we implement that alpha, then we will get the differential equation dx by dt equal to sx into 1 minus x in equation 5. So some steps I am just skipping in order to have the summary of the mathematics which is being described here. And finally, if we put the boundary condition here, then x will be equal to x0 by x0 plus e to the power minus st. And from this equation, we can get that in the theory of natural selection, even though it is claiming that after certain time, with the favorable properties only, with the introduction of the even the bad mutation, it will be going out. It is not true, because here at any finite time, the small x is not going to be 1. It will be half only after the time span of minus log x0 by s. And also, this property A does not completely fix itself in the species in any finite time. And a residue of the harmful mutation will always be there. So this is very interesting, that whenever this random mutation, even if we are incorporating, or this stable population concept we are bringing, that generation after generation it should have, then this natural selection theory is not going to work well. So if we assume now that a residue of the disadvantageous property or this harmful mutation will be there, and there if we now revise that this YR, where R equal to 0, 1, 2, 3 up to R be the fractions of the population with no defect, 1 defect, 2 defect, in that way, and from the definition of the fraction, the sum of YI equal to 1. And if we also implement that condition that generation after generation stable population will be there, we will get equations like this, 9, 10, and 11, where this Y0, Y1, YR, these are representing the fraction of the population after t plus 1 step, and in the right side it is at the t time span. And in that way, if we modify those equations, we will get 13, 14, and 15 equations. Okay, dy0 by dt, dyn by dt, in that way dyr by dt. And if we solve these differential equations now along with the boundary conditions y0 equal to 1, yr equal to 1, then you will get a different kind of scenario, which earlier for no mutation we got that okay, with favorable property small x will be 1, but it is not considering the stable population generation after generation. When we are considering the condition of the stable population generation after generation, it is not, this small x is not going to be 1, or that with only favorable property the population will lead to 1, or here when the defects or the bad mutations are being considered, then things are completely different. Here the solution is also not so simple like earlier cases for this 13, 14, and 15 along with the boundary conditions of 16. So here in order to solve, so some parts I am just keeping. Okay. So here in order to get the values of y0, y1, y2, in that way yr, if we solve, you will get a expression where the statistical distribution will be there, and that statistical distribution is like Poisson's distribution, where this, if we leave the y0, where y1 means fraction of the population, okay, where only 1 defect is there, y2 is the fraction of the population where 2 defects are there. So there, if we plot this y1, y2 in that way yr, so initially its values are increasing, then it will reach a maximum, and after that its values are decreasing, and the distribution pattern is like Poisson's distribution. I am skipping some part. Yeah, so there we can see the Poisson's distribution, okay, in equation 14. And in order to solve it in a better way, some trick is there. So one parameter q was introduced. For q equal to 0, it will be biologically one best option that permitting the least penetration of defect into the next generation. That means natural selection is going to work when you are getting a distribution, statistical distribution which is in the form of Poisson's distribution of the defects. That means after some defects are occurred, then only natural selection theory is going to work well, not before that. This is very interesting thing. So this equation 30, I think, the above equation is just the Poisson distribution for average value lambda. Lambda is the bad mutations when each offspring is going to born. This lambda by 1 minus lambda into s, and this is the number of defects possessed by an average number of the population, giving a reduction of fitness by this equation 31. So already fitness, already when the fitness will be reduced by this, then only this natural selection is going to happen. Okay, so the conclusion of this 33 also, the natural selection is able to prevent a situation in which the average individual has a fitness lowered by this exponential or e to the power minus lambda from worsening any further. However, it cannot prevent the original situation from worsening. That means when the defects are very less, or when at the beginning there is no defect, the natural selection is not going to work at all. But when defects are in the form of a statistical distribution or Poisson's distribution, then only this natural selection, this theory is going to work. So in summary of the asexual model, I can just conclude these 2 points, that natural selection is not a promoter of what is good in any absolute sense, but this natural selection can only favor what is better against what is worse. And this model, of course, can be extended for the bisexual model, but their mathematics involved will be little tough. So conclusion from this present asexual reproduction model, or which are also the limitations of the natural selection theory, that it is seen from the present theory that it can be made to work even in the limited degree when the present asexual model is changed to the sophisticated model of sexual reproduction. This model presents an insuperable problem for the notion that life arose out of an abiological organic soup through the development of a primitive replicating system. A primitive replicating system could not have copied itself with anything like the fidelity of present day systems. A favorable mutation is not irrevocably tied to all the bad mutations in the cell in which it arises. And for if the evolution by natural selection really worked in the abstract sense in which new Darwinians assert that it works, then there would be no need for plasmid transfer. It is one phenomena related to asexual reproduction. So this is the mathematical part, that when this natural selection theory is going to work and how. And the spiritual viewpoint on the evolution theory, this is taken from our ancient, in India's ancient literature, Vedanta. So there the definition of evolution is completely different. It describes that evolution is the journey of the conscious particle, living particle, from one body to another at a time and space under the law of karma. Okay, so it is not like this natural selection or the mutation of the DNA. It explains that evolution is the journey of the innumerable conscious particles of life or souls in time and space as they travel from one form of body to another under the laws of karma. This laws of karma is, I think, nowadays also to some extent known in the West as well, because as you sow, so you will reap. So this is very much accepted, at least in the educated people. For each living entity's degree or level of consciousness will determine the direction of his evolutionary path. It's not that it is one way, but it is both way. If his consciousness goes down, you can be going down also in these spaces. Darwin's mistake was that he could not conceive the concept of consciousness or the living particle or the soul. Thus, Vedanta does not accept Darwin's theory of evolution. Under normal circumstances, consciousness evolves linearly as well as stepwise. The different bodies or forms to accommodate a specific conscious being are already arranged by nature within a cosmic plan. The biological forms impose a limitation in the development of consciousness. Therefore, different degrees of consciousness are expressed through different bodies. So here, in the last 2-3 presentations, I think I was just looking about the discussion of consciousness, but here Vedanta is telling in a more vivid way the different degrees of consciousness. That consciousness can be categorized into 5 broad categories. which are covered, shrunken, budding, blooming, and fully bloomed. These trees and plants, for example, fall in the category of covered consciousness. Worms, insects, etc. are in shrunken consciousness. Human beings are in the budding consciousness, but they have the potential to go to blooming and then fully bloom consciousness as well. So in the human form of life, when one begins to sincerely inquire about the absolute truth, one's bird-like spiritual consciousness begins to expand or evolve, and this is the blooming state of consciousness. Then when, as a result of his inquiry, the human being practices regulated spiritual discipline, he evolves further and further. Finally, he attains complete transcendental realization, God consciousness, the fully bloomed state of consciousness. So the last three is applicable, that budding, blooming, and fully blooming, these are related to human being. But before that, I have already explained in which category they are. So what Vedantic cosmology supports? In Vedic cosmology, there are periodic cycles known as Yuga cycle, ages, and also creation and annihilation of the material world along with living beings takes place continuously like changes of seasons. There are 4 yugas, Satta, Treta, Dwapar, Kali. When the appropriate cosmic cycle appears, many different biological forms manifest in that particular yuga cycle. Also, according to Vedanta, since all the biological forms have already been existing in subtle states, either manifested or unmanifested, embodied life on earth would start in principle from any organism, bacteria, plants, birds, animals, human beings, etc., according to the certain laws of karma. So this thing also we can think in this way, that just now this rainy season is over. So during the rainy season, you can observe there are many new plants on the soil. But once this season is over, you will not see those for the 1 year. Again, when the next rainy season will come, you will again see those. So what does it mean? That those are not existing, or those are existing but in a subtle state. So in that way, there is no question of evolution of the Darwin theory. So here it is, everything is existing, but it manifests and unmanifests from time to time. This is the evolution theory which Vedantic cosmology is telling about. So thus Vedantic cosmology supports the simultaneous manifestation of many organisms, and this principle is in direct contradiction with the Darwinian philosophy. So this is last thing is very important, because it is going to give the conclusion. So the conclusions of my presentations are: the applicability of the modern biological evolution theory has been described considering a single parent offspring or the asexual model using Hoyle's mathematical theory. Starting from a simple feedback differential equation, solutions were obtained on key issues of natural selection for various cases. The studies show that the Darwinian theory is correct in a limited sense. The performance of the mathematical model, this Hoyle model, is quite impressive and suggests applicability for the other cases of reproduction. And finally, Vedantic viewpoint on the evolution theory, which supports the simultaneous manifestation of many organisms, has also been explained. So these are the references. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much. Now, if anyone want to ask any question, feel free to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Z. This is the first time I've been hearing about, I'm from the bioscience background, and you have proof in such a very wonderful mathematical formulation of the natural selection and evolution. This is amazing. There were some uncertainties in the theoretical evolution theory of, these are Darwin's evolution. But with this proof of uncertainties of natural selections, there is some, valid proof that natural selection is not valid. because aging is also there. Okay, now my question is, sir, this consciousness, that has been talking for so much in, say, in quantum mechanics, also in chemistry, also in biology. Can we also formulate it in a mathematical formula, like in thermodynamics laws of, this energy cannot be created nor be destroyed, like the consciousness, like in the biocentrisms of the dissolution of the body, consciousness, like as an energy, also exists in a different dimension in the space-time. Can you all please also formalize in the future in the mathematical formulation?
Just before my presentation, one presentation was that how to axiomatize the consciousness by Professor Engg, but I don't think it is so easy, in my opinion. This consciousness is the property of the fundamental living particle, so I don't think it can be axiomatized in a very good way.
Next question, please.
Sir, while listening to the speakers, it's becoming clear to me that each speaker means differently by consciousness. First, I would like to know what you mean by consciousness. My second question is that, what do you mean by human beings are evolving continuously? Does your idea of human beings evolving between different states have an impact on the equality of all human beings?
I think I skipped this part. So if I explain that as per Padma Purana, there are 9 lakh forms of life in water, 20 lakh forms of trees and other plants. Then there are 11 lakh species of small living beings, insects and reptiles, and 10 lakh species of birds. Finally, there are 30 lakh varieties of beasts and 4 lakh human species. So, if I ask that what is the meaning of this last part, that 4 lakh human species, how you can actually, on the basis of consciousness, in our Indian these spiritual traditions, we are not at the same level. So there are 4 lakh human species are there. Not that human is one species. 4 lakh human species are there based on their consciousness. Because I am not same with that person, Professor Jalta or Professor Ghosh. We all are actually different, and it is not a very small issue, this consciousness. It is a very big topic, in-depth topic. So in just 5 minutes, it cannot be concluded, but the consciousness is not same for all human beings. That's why I just showed that. Even, in human being, how the consciousness is developed from budding state to fully bloom state, that also these last 3 points are explaining. We can have better consciousness by practicing something, and in that way we can evolve. It is not that from other living species to human being, or from human being to other living species. Even by exercising our this consciousness, or by having better consciousness, we can transmigrate ourselves, or the living particle can transmigrate to other species. That I want. It is not audible, please.
So can any human being practice all the spiritual disciplines that you are talking about?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
There is no restriction.
One more question.
Good evening, sir. You have explained very nicely in the natural selections and Darwin's concept, and which is based on consciousness. It contradicts Darwin consciousness.
Yes.
And my question is that whatever you have explained, is it going to be implemented on the school book or college book, textbook, in the government section, government publication?
That is a tough task, but we have to do. If scientifically at least we are correct, then we can try for implementation. And of course, I think nowadays, in many places, they are putting aside this Darwin's theory, in many places that I know at least, in West as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So this was indeed a lovely interaction and a talk on the subject Fred Hoyle's Mathematical Theory of Natural Selection by Dr. Debashish Khan, Department of Mechanical Engineering, IIT, Varanasi.